Hello and welcome to another episode of Data Delicacies. Super exciting one here. Before we jump into it, I'm your host, Arun Kumar. The show is powered by Incentivio. We're the ultimate customer data platform for restaurants. And we are coming away with the podcast, getting a lot of great feedback. And I'm super excited to have Seth Temko on the show today. Seth, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate you.
Of course. So, I'm glad that we got connected when we did, because I think we've had a lot of great conversations since then. And, there's going to be a ton of cool stuff we talk about on the show today. But before we dive into that, I just, you have a pretty cool background in the space. You've been around for quite some time and have a lot of cool stories to tell. So, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and kind of what got you to this point today?
Sure. So I'm old, so I have a lot of experience. That's a consequence of being old. But I've been involved in hospitality tech going all the way back to 1999. And I did a few other things in the bridge between today and back then. But that was .com 1.0 days. That was really interesting times because things were being invented for the first time. And there were a lot of really crazy business models, a lot of free-flowing money being thrown out by venture capitals. And I got to be involved in that process. So the beginning of my career was really my discipline and study was marketing. And I got involved with digital marketing when there was all of 3 books on marketing on the internet. I went to Barnes & Noble, and in one weekend, I was an expert because I read all 3 books on internet marketing. And so a lot of things were to be learned and invented and perfected. And then there were maybe 100, 200 companies in hospitality tech. And now you flash forward to today with SaaS models where you don't need to worry about infrastructure and compute. You need to code the layer that adds the value for everybody. And I don't think anybody really knows how many hospitality tech companies there are in total in the US or globally, but my estimate is 3,000 to 5,000. And in that transition, I was doing product management. I was CTO, VP of operations, creating technologies. And then I went back to marketing in the later part of my career. And I've been a multi-time CMO at Xenial, at Touch Bistro, at Par Technology, and I've done go-to-market work at Yext and a couple of non-hospitality tech-related companies. So I've been involved with large public companies and co-founded startups. So I've worn many hats in different things.
Yeah. And that's, I think we got connected because I heard you were the marketing guru in hospitality. And, you spent some time, you said also on kind of the tech and product side. What made you kind of, you probably swim in both lanes now, but which part of that coin excites you more, the marketing side or kind of the product tech side?
I think I enjoy the go-to-market side more. And I think it's because it is, in my opinion, no offense to those who create all the wonderful technologies that deliver all the value, because I have mad respect for keeping things going and bug-free day in, day out. That is not easy. And usually it's not. But one of the things I used to kid about in being in charge of the technologies was, 99+% of the time things were up and running and no one said, "Hey, Seth, good job. Like your team is doing a great job keeping us up and running." We're 121 days bug free, there was none of that. It was the, oh shit. Right. And how could your team right. You go through all of that and it's technology. It's not, things happen, bugs happen, and I would say now cybercrime happens. Like it's even bigger stakes and bigger issues that everyone needs to navigate. So early part of my career, I was figuring out how to do things, but now I get more excited about what to do because the path to delivery for the products is significantly faster now than it used to be 25 years ago by a lot. And just by measure of comparison, if we were to stand up a new technology we would have to be talking about the hardware we would buy as bare metal, the operating systems we would have to license, the networking technology that we'd have to bring in. Then we'd have to set up, configure, stand up, load balance, get data lines into. And that's just to provide the infrastructure now to write the software that would stand on top of that.
Mm.
And all that's gone away, right? So,
Different world.
One talented person with dedication, focus, imagination, and some talent can do what many, many people had to do in the past. And so I find it just much more exciting to be on the figuring out how to deliver value in market and then hopefully be financially rewarded for that value delivery.
Yeah.
And those two things do not go hand in hand necessarily.
Yes. I think we all kind of make our own bets in different ways and hedge how we can. So, I mean, I kind of, in my world, I live on both sides, right? The go-to-market, but also the technical product side, just, in the nature of partnerships. And kind of what I'm hearing is, and what I've seen as well, is that the kind of barrier to entry to tech, right? In terms of like writing your own code or coming up with a new platform or starting a new app, that has become easier and easier to get into now, right? I mean, I've seen videos of people just, you can tell ChatGPT now to make something for you just in a matter of seconds. So it sounds like the big differentiator now is your marketing, go-to-market strategy. That's really what sets you apart when there is so much tech out there.
I think so. I mean, you need to understand the market. You need to understand pain points. I think, and there's different stages to the company. And I guess it's overall what your goal is. So if you're independent and you're self-funded, like I'm doing something as a side where we have done that, you can take as much time as you want. There's not a countdown clock,
right,
to the destruction of your capital reserves, right?
Yeah.
That's if you're operating in a typical SaaS model where you're venture capital funded, in which case it's all about pace, continued growth up and to the right. And at the same time, you're figuring out market and value, technology and fit. That's where the risk comes in, right? In getting that all right, correct, and aligned. I think at the point that a company becomes break even or cash flow positive, one, there's this massive relief from the founders in general, like, oh my God, but the pressure doesn't stop because still you must be up and to the right. But the idea that you've reached break even is probably, in my opinion, one of the most significant things that a company in earlier stages can do, as opposed to hitting a certain metric where you're still burning cash. Like a lot of times it's $1 million in annual revenue. And if I can hit $1 million in ARR, then I get to the next plateau of investment or investors or valuation or whatever it may be. The pace only picks up at that point, right? Like now you're faster on the treadmill because your valuation average will come down in your Series A, but your overall revenue should be going up. And so the overall valuation of the company is going up and you're in that virtuous and virtual cycle up and to the right. What I love getting involved with is companies that, sorry, something distracted me out. We'll edit that out. So it's up. What I love getting involved with is the figuring out when things are not going on the parabolic curve up. And so I call it early warning signs of go-to-market distress. So what is that? So if you're past $1 million in ARR, and you're still only one sales channel, a direct channel, not a partnership channel, not a reseller channel, not embedded technology channel, or whatever alternative ways you can have. You're only in one geographic market. You're only selling in one country or one part of a country, one region. If you're only selling to one segment characteristically in a market, you inevitably will start getting uphill climb pressures. And then all you have to do is look at what's happening in the sales organization, the marketing organization. So look at marketing, look at the pipeline of marketing, see what I call decaying economics. So your your CAC, your cost of customer acquisition, is getting extended. Your lead conversion rates are down. Your top of funnel might be mighty and wide as the Amazon, but you're a tiny creek and a trickle when it comes to conversion rate.
Yeah.
That's an early part of the funnel warning sign. And then direct sales, like to hit a month, hit a quarter, hit end of year, are you pulling deals forward? So are you taking the natural and realistic progression of your pipeline and you're doing special deals, discounts? Well, if you sign today, we won't bill you for 90 days, right? Like all those behaviors, they're not illegal, they're not unethical, but it's a sign that the constant pace of consistent and ongoing growth is starting to struggle and have challenges. And I enjoy coming into and working with companies that are already in market. They already have customers. And so we have a lot of things to understand. We can pull information and data from. My philosophy is to be data informed, not data driven, a little contrary to some other CMOs. The reason I say that is because we sell to people. We have technologies that are constantly changing. And we need to reevaluate probably more frequently than most companies have had to do in the past about their product, their position, their value delivery, and how to maximize revenue. And once again, it goes back to the initial conversation of the pace and the change of product is so fast.
Yeah.
How can you just assume that for years and years and years you're in good shape? And I think a great example is I started doing consulting a year and a half ago. So it's go-to-market strategy, product marketing work, and then we'll do marketing augmentation. It's a team of 5 of us. We'll do 90-day go-to-market strategy sessions. So we do 30 days of intake, 30 days of research, 30 days of strategy, creation, delivery, and then we can help with implementation or not. It's up to the clients. So when I transitioned from corporate to doing consulting, I actually had some free time, which was kind of nice. So get in the pool, exercise, lose some weight. That's kind of great. That's on the personal side. But it allowed free time to dig into generative AI. So I was working with, of course, with a marketing background, like fascinated with Midjourney and what you could do with Midjourney, and then looking into specifically with OpenAI, with ChatGPT, and with Claude, with Sonnet. And it is mind-boggling to me, literally mind-boggling, how fast these large language models are evolving. I mean, we used to talk about in SaaS software, 5-year in traditional, down to 3 years in SaaS, down to 2 years in SaaS, down to 1 year. It is now months. Yeah. It could be 3-month cycles, quarterly cycles, massive increases in capability and speed of performance. How do you keep up with that? I mean, so how?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's honestly, I think that's a good discussion point there. And I just think I was just talking about this with a friend the other day. I think about if you look at a year ago, right, or even 18 months ago, like ChatGPT, some people were still like, I don't know, like I don't even know what is that, or some people were using it, some people weren't. Right now, I think in the new iOS update, like OpenAI is part of the iOS operating system. So like ChatGPT is being fully immersed into like our everyday, which it's crazy to think, right? To your point, it's happening so fast versus like years ago, things took a lot of time to catch momentum and then update from there. So, let me ask you this. So with FullOn Strategy, right, which is your consulting practice, you work with both tech companies, but also with restaurants. Yeah. How do you find both sides of the coin trying to adapt to this like super rapid change?
Oh, yeah. It's, I would say largely restaurants are interested, but largely ignoring AI at this time. And it's because they have to. So the burden of value delivery is going to reside in the restaurant technology companies. So if we are waiting on restaurants to somehow learn about all the different capabilities of AI, and I think right now probably the lowest hanging fruits of realization have been in programmatic coding assistance, have been in marketing and marketing type functions, have been in like structured data input, financial data, warehousing data, things like that, and then structuring for conversational question and answer. That's low hanging fruit. But the use cases that will deliver value, those have yet to be defined and validated with the restaurant operators and hotel operators, I mean, hospitality in general, right? And I think for them to really do that, tech companies are going to have to invest in agile processes to create some experiences for the hospitality operators to interact with, to start to really be educated on the possibilities, and then begin a positive feedback loop. And I think until that happens, there's just a lot of what I call conversational confusion. I think we saw that at FS Tech. I was at FS Tech last year in 2023. And there was, I mean, everyone said, oh yeah, the topic of conversation was AI. But if you went and you talked to each person about what are you most excited about AI in, a lot of general confusion around that. And I think it's a big opportunity. I think it's a large opportunity. Pretty much any software business operating in hospitality has the opportunity to take AI and incorporate it to improve the value of the product to their customers. The question is whether they'll be able to monetize that.
Right.
We could look at it for innovation. We could look at it for differentiation. We could use it for improvements in UI, UX. We could speed processes. We could build in more efficiencies, but will we be brave enough to say, and this will cost you X number of dollars, and then the market will pay? That's going to be a challenge to figure out. So I guess the risk is, I think some of the brave restaurant tech companies are going to have to step forward and say, we'll be first, we'll do the tests, we'll bring them to market. But it may be that the ones who come in sort of in that ski trail that's already blazed, or they're going to be the ones that move really fast. Now, with that being said, there are some companies like FasterLines and Holometer using video AI. They're doing some really interesting things where drive-through in lines and in the stores. And then I think beyond that, they're starting to get operational insight into what are bottlenecks, how to alert managers, how to get it cleared. So it's not this like post-fact analytical, maybe we'll improve our plan for the future. It's like real time right now, you have some blockers, clear those blockers, you're going to generate more revenue today. I think that's higher value proposition, probably more immediately what everyone's looking for.
Yeah, that's you touched on a lot of great things there. And I think, with some of the guests I've had on the show, kind of the common sentiment I've had is that there's a bit of a bridge in gap in almost like how things are being presented from, the tech side to the operator side, where, we talk about FS Tech, you talk about, NRA, which is the most recent show we were at, just a month ago. I mean, almost every single booth, I would say, or had something about AI or ML or something, written on there.
Sure.
And to your point, like these restaurants are like, okay, that's cool, but like, what does that mean and how do I monetize it? And if it's also like a new thing, am I going to go pay more for it with the hope that there's the ROI at the end, right? So I think it's definitely on us. And this is something at Incentivio that we're constantly trying to do is like, how do we make that message super clear to them that the stuff that we do can give them immediate impact, right? Without necessarily like, sometimes I feel like this over simplified explanation is, or sorry, this overcomplicated explanation has been given of what they can do, then you almost lose people, right? Because I would say this way: if I can't explain it to my grandma in like 10 seconds, then it's like you're going to lose people if you start getting to like 2-3 minutes to explain what you can do.
Yeah, I do think there are some point solution blue ocean opportunities. So voice AI is one of them. Myself, my team, we've been working with Voicify, which actually I've known the founders of Voicify from partnering with them at Yext. So for many years, they're more of a headless voice AI solution. And then they realized they had opportunities in restaurant. And so they've shifted in the last 2 years to be very dedicated in restaurant. They asked for some help because the industry was new to them, not to me, to them. So it was a good alignment. And when I was talking to them about it and entering the market, I just said, steer clear of drive-through AI. We can talk about anything else, but those are rocks that you will crash against and begin to take on water in the boat. And year and a half later, I have not changed my opinion on that. And there's many challenges for it, and it has less to do about software and it has much more to do about environment and the hardware dependencies. So, where there's a lot of opportunity is phone AI. It's, you have a cell phone. It has phenomenal technology built into it natively, including background noise suppression, and it's digitally delivered. And restaurants do not have enough staff to answer the phone. So put in a Voicify system into a restaurant brand, and you will see a 100% to 300% increase in the volume of calls answered. And that's simply because the phone wasn't being answered. Now, take that and connect that to other technologies like the point of sale system or the reservation system. Now you have a new channel of UI UX interface. And the reality is the diners don't want the greeting from a person. They want the reservation on the time and the day that they're looking for. They want the order of the food to go in. And then of course you always have text. So if you don't have an integration, you have text capabilities and you can text links and you can answer questions. And, the voice simulations from 11 labs and that come out is just so human realistic. It's practically a deep fake. It's like, hey, what are you doing later tonight after your shift? Like, hey, dude, I'm an AI. Oh, I had no idea. You just, it's just becoming so realistic with natural pauses and also the response that it does it. And what's interesting is the AI is so fast, like they literally have to build in delays and pauses because it's milliseconds to come in, to validate, to look up a database, and then to respond back. I mean, we're talking about less than a second to do that whole journey, understand intent, look up the data, and then bring back the correct interaction. That they have to slow it down because the human mind and cultural interfaces are used to it. And to me, that's, I don't know what Main Street business, forget just restaurants alone, what Main Street business does not need help answering the phone.
Right. Yeah. And that's a really good point. And I want to just go back to, your talk about drive-through, right? Like, do you have a specific example to share why that's not very practical at the moment? And do you see a light at the end of the tunnel specific for drive-through and voice AI?
Yeah. So think about drive-through systems and the current state of technologies. So you have a digital order board probably, and in it a digital confirmation board maybe that maybe works. You have a speaker, like 3-inch speaker, metal cladded, all weather, right? And then you have a small single point microphone, a non-directional microphone in a open air environment with surrounded by running cars radios, people having conversations on the phone, in the back seat, next door. And that's just the environment. So now you have to, the software needs to discount background noise, find what the point of the solution. You could have 4 people yelling orders from a car. I know I do that. I'm just like, tell them what you want to order, because I'm not gonna be the central order taker for the car and somehow remember 15 items on my head. It's
many times. Yep.
Right. Like something's going wrong. So tell them. So now you have different voices and point sources, and louder and softer. And then just think about the nature of how people describe things, and colloquialisms, and and ahs, and accents, and speaking different languages, right? So multi-language support, and Spanglish, right? So it's English, it's Spanish, you're kind of doing a mix. And our brain is excellent at discerning patterns, identifying the right cognitive lock, and then we figure it out. Our software in our messy gray matter sort of figures it out. That's what we're good at. So now to say, okay, now do that with software, with large language models. To one, they've got to understand what you're saying and what your intent is, and then look up the correct potential responses with the right data, and then repeat it back to you via voice in a way that you'll understand. That's a lot. That's a lot to ask. And I think too, there's this bar. So like what happens with all the voice AI when it comes in is you have the untrained model where you're at, and different technologies start at different levels. I'll tell you, there's some in drive-thru that start sub 50%. And operators will tell you that they're looking for above 80% and ideally above 90%. You can get there much faster with phone than you're ever going to get in a drive-thru. Now, there are companies like Acrolec and others that do the hardware for the drive-thrus, and they're working on it. There's companies like PAR, they're moving their headsets to fully digital in that. These are all the things that you need to do to basically emulate what a $600 to $1,200 phone is doing, and then put it in the drive-thru. But that's a CapEx investment for the restaurant operators. And so we know that they're like little T-Rex arms. It's hard to reach the wallet sometimes, understandably. It's a low margin business, very competitive. So the thought that, you're going to take something that you spent, many tens of thousands of dollars to invest, and now retrofit it in that, and get it up to a level of hardware and data transfer, because voice is data, right? And now integrate with headsets and that for fallover, for support where AI may fail. That's going to take time, and that's going to take investment. And I do believe that that's an opportunity for the hardware vendors.
Yeah, no, great breakdown. I think, I even think about sometimes even just with, in my drive-thru experiences, even when the person on the other side of the line, just there's so much like back and forth. Hey, did you get it? Is the order right? Right. And I can only imagine sometimes you add the tech piece with all the other variables, it can make it it can slow down the process. I think for drive-thrus, they really look at it as like time per car, right? And you start to elongate that out, that's a loss in revenue, and then that's a bad experience, and then that's a very bad trickle effect.
Well, it's not just there is drive-thru, especially for quick service, can be definitely the highest ordering channel of all of them, right? It could be 70 or 80% at some drive-thrus.
Yeah.
And drive-thrus have gotten more complex from single lane to dual lane. Now it's multi-lane. Now in the Chipotle model, it's pickup only, which simplifies somewhat, that process, right? And now you have the merging of app and drive-thru and functionality. So the models are pretty complex. The rewards are very high, but I think it's the additional challenge that's coming into the market is the accuracy of the orders. So there was this fascinating non-scientific test that a group of people did where they did orders at various fast food restaurants, and they're looking at the get it right rate. So they modified every order. They would say, I don't want ketchup. I do want something else, right? It's mostly burgers, like, but pretty straightforward, like nothing crazy, with it. And I think the highest rate they saw was like 70%. And they tried the different channels. They tried drive-through, they tried through the app where they're outside the store, and they're doing it from a kiosk. And so they're trying all the different ways from people. And there's definitely can be large areas for improvement. We'll put it that way. Or like look at a brand like Panera, roughly 5% of all drive-through orders have a dispute claim. There's a center that just handles bad order complaints and how to resolve them. There's a resolution center for that. And so if 5% are calling in, we know maybe double or triple that. Probably they have experienced that they just didn't bother, it didn't bother them enough to, take action kind of thing.
Yeah.
Maybe they went into the restaurant. I know our habit is with my family, we get the bag, and if it's more than the driver, the person in the seat is going through and counting items. So at least we know we got all our items. Okay, now we'll pull away, right?
Yes, yeah, all the time. I mean, because the amount of times there's something been missing or whatever, they have to, the whole process of coming back sometimes isn't worth it, right? So you want to make sure you have that count right away. No, that's really cool insight there. I want to shift topics a bit here to, some of the reason that we're working together, right? So, we're big on the customer engagement side. I mean, I know you help with, you came over from PAR, and even at your previous, you worked with some of the big giants. And, I want to start off the conversation with this fairly simple question is, what does loyalty mean to you?
So there's a debate, and this debate came up like really for me 7-8 years ago. So I was at Xenial, and we had acquired a company called Beanstalk. Beanstalk was loyalty, and it became the Xenial customer engagement product platform. We had bundled in other things that you could do, like list customer review management, that kind of stuff. And I think there is this question of perspective. So is it loyalty and rewards, or is it customer engagement? And so I think right there is this conversation about what is the purpose of the program for the restaurant. Set the technology to the side, right? Because you could take a punch card and just punch little puppy paws into a card, right? And or drop things into a bowl. Hence, Fishbowl was born, right? Like collecting the email addresses and interacting with them. Yeah. So I think a lot of people get caught up in like the loyalty and the rewards part of it, which is like this inducement or incentive to interact on a regular basis and share your identity. But the email component, the CRM and the email component is really can be a robust marketing tool. But once again, the philosophy of what you do with it is so important. So I think if restaurants are not careful, it becomes a discounting tool as opposed to something that lifts brand, helps educate and expand brand awareness and resonance in people's minds, and sort of increases frequency of visit, which I think is what they really ultimately want to do. Not that they don't want to reward customers, but there's some brands that I know that basically when their customers wait for whatever the special offer is, and then you can see the sales results, right? And in effect, you have to be careful, or you're basically price discounting. And by the way, you're price discounting with some of your most loyal customers, which can account for an outsized ratio of revenue and profits for your business.
Yeah.
So, a lot of restaurants will set a goal of about 20% is a typical goal. Can we get 20% of our customers to join loyalty? And then it's not just join loyalty, but can they be active with those loyalty programs in some way? And then can they refer others? So you get into referral. So it's very comprehensive. I think for incentive, and I'll just back up and say, so last year I met with 70, 80 restaurant technology companies, a lot of meetings. I mean, and one-on-ones and conversations and understanding. So it's two purposes. One is to be aware in the market, because it's once again, there's a lot of companies and a lot of change. So how do you stay sharp, when the market's constantly changing, looking for opportunities to help through consulting services, of course, and then also trying to understand what are the best products, because we get asked a lot for recommendations. And I think when it comes to loyalty, there's a couple of things. One is, does a company understand what their goals are? Because if you know what your goals are, sometimes the product that you use, some tools are better for certain goals than others, or reflect certain functionality that you really need to stay focused on. So do that. I think two is, are they looking for a platform or a point source solution? So in the case of Incentivio, I love that you guys have a platform. So there's not a debate of, well, I have loyalty and the CRM and email looks great, but now I got to go and connect with a maybe a rewards product, or I need an online ordering product, and it goes on. And there is a cost. So the more vendors involved. So it's a challenge that some people will say, well, platforms are more complex and that they touch more aspects of my business and I have less control. But then again, there is a overhead cost and direct overhead cost in contracts and relationships and maintaining them, but also indirect costs with integrations that break, because they will.
Yeah.
Finger pointing.
Yeah.
It's their fault. It's their fault.
And the data hygiene piece, right? Like, oh, it's not syncing. This is that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then what I love is the fact that you guys are, because you have all the data, you can standardize the data, and then you can apply AI and data analytics to look at frequency, retention rates, segment metric. And so you have good experiences in the ways that people can order and interact with a brand. And then you have this really good persona-based data intelligence that you can lay out, which I think resonates with marketers well. And huge enterprises, they have some different challenges, and not the solo businesses. I love the independent restaurants, but they have different needs, different focuses, but the multi-units and that they have enough sophistication and challenges in their business. And they also have data challenges where, hey, a loyalty member may be across multiple stores. How do I track and understand that? How do I create a plan and respond and work with that? So I think you guys have a really good approach to market.
Thank you. No, I really appreciate that feedback. And you mentioned a couple of good points that I want to dive into. And, that kind of perspective of, does loyalty mean, discounts from rewards, or is it about building community? You've had a lot of experience working directly with brands. What are you seeing some of the best brands do when it comes to loyalty on kind of, separating themselves? Because we're seeing loyalty now become more and more prevalent across a lot of brands, right? The access to have a loyalty program. I mean, the ethos of why Incentivio started is because, Starbucks, McDonald's, they had loyalty programs. We're like, hey, it's not fair that all these other folks don't. So we want to level the playing field.
Sure.
Now that more people have access to that, we talk about access to tech, now it becomes about differentiation. And what have you seen some of the best brands do when it comes to differentiating their loyalty programs versus others?
I think they do well at integrated marketing, in which loyalty becomes it could be a centerpiece. It doesn't need to be that everything rides on it, but it's incorporated into the integrated marketing. So these brands are talking about their food, their environment, their experience, and loyalty is a part of that, as opposed to loyalty just being a QR code at the counter and at the table. And a button, right? So that's probably there's nothing wrong with that. You need to promote your loyalty programs, right? And as we saw with Chick-fil-A, if you give away a chicken sandwich, you'll get millions of people to sign up for your loyalty app. But then again, they have a lot of raving fans, right? So that's sort of like a cheater brand to turn to with it. But free food items, especially significant items, will get registrations. it's the interaction with it afterwards. So like what's interesting, to pull out Chick-fil-A is Chick-fil-A is one of those rare loyalty programs. It's almost like an airline program. Like you have color status, you're blue and red, and you get different points. And then at a certain level, you can get a tour at corporate Chick-fil-A, which, no offense to Chick-fil-A, that doesn't resonate with me. I don't know that I want to do it, but some people are like, wow, this is an immersive brand corporate experience. And they're offering that, and I'm sure there are hundreds or thousands of people that will take them up on that, so it's like this heavily involved brand. I think it'd be interesting to see what Big Chicken does being so tied in with Shack, and how do you tie in or bring Shack as part of the experience, knowing that the food and the restaurant environment needs to stand on its own merits, right? Love Shack, have met Shack. I think he's an amazing person and entrepreneur, but he can't be at dozens, hundreds, or thousands of restaurants, right? So how do you take that without it being Shack Chicken, right? Or Chicken Shack? It's got to be Big Chicken, but how do you take a beloved cultural icon and then incorporate him into the experiences in there? And I think that's novel and different that they have to do that. And I think that it just being thoughtful. So I think a lot of the loyalty, like a loyalty platform like yours, and there are other good loyalty platforms in the market, it's a starting point. It's an enabler. But there is so much that needs to be done about the communications, how it ties to brand, how you're going to interact, how you're going to reach out. And it's again and again and again and again. So if you look at traditional CRM and email, if you're using that, which, is a core component of the value, now you have this regular way that you can reach out. And with apps, you can extend it into the app experience. So you don't want to over communicate. You don't want to under communicate. You don't want to be like the discount alert, blue light special all the time. And at the same time, you need to offer some incentives to bring people back. Personalization, segmentation, themes, messaging that tie into your overall restaurant brand, messaging, marketing, advertising, bring that together. And I'm going to put the burden on restaurant tech companies. I'm going to say that Incentivio and others, like, help your customers more, make it easier for them to do those activities and be creative. And I'm going to pull it back to AI. I don't know why can't use AI tied in to help create the themes, even the messaging in that, right? We've seen it in customer review management systems for quite a while. I'm good friends with the founders of Merchant Centric, and they've had AI for long before OpenAI, 5, 6, 7 years. I know Yext was doing it as well, and they're leveraging AI to do review response and auto-populate based on topic and that. And I think all of those things are now even, X multiplier more available to be brought in to make marketers' lives easier. I mean, to literally feed into the loyalty platform systems about their brand, about their language preferences, about their brand tone of voice, their imagery, their color palettes, their icons, all of it, and train an AI model to now be this very helpful assistant in these ongoing segmented and very specific communications. I mean, there's a point where there's a Seth message and an Arun message, and it's actually relevant, right? Like, we can do that. We've talked about it. We've talked about personalization for a long time, but I mean, it can literally be from instead of one to many, one to one. And to me, that gets me very excited. I'm like, that's an amazing convergence of backgrounds for me, from product development and then marketing, and then fusing that together. And I think it's just getting started. Like, we have this conversation, forget 10 years, 3 years from now, it's gonna be a very different conversation.
Agreed. Yeah. Maybe you should. I'll send you a calendar invite as a whole. Then let's come back. We'll watch this.
Have your AI scheduled.
Exactly.
My AI,
yeah.
please.
You brought up a lot of really good things. And firstly, the call out is great. I mean, that's a challenge that we're looking to take on, right? We want to make it super simple for, whether you're a 1 location, 5 location, 200 location group, to be able to take the tech and then really practically apply it now and be able to engage their customers. I think I'm a strong believer of that. Loyalty. It's about creating that personalization and forcing that human connection you have with the brand. And to your point, I mean, we all get spam. You get flyers, right? I think flyers are like some of the oldest form of like marketing communication. It's like I kind of just flip through the page I want to see, right? I'm a tech guy, so I'll go to like, okay, what TVs are on sale or what smart home tech is on sale, right? I'm not looking at like the lawnmowers and stuff. Versus my dad, he's looking at all like that stuff, right? So versus if I look at, even some of the emails I get from some of my favorite brands, someone's very just like throw it at the wall, right? They just kind of, hey, are you interested in any of this? And it's like a bunch of stuff. But the ones I actually look at are very directed towards me. It's like, hey, I noticed you purchased this last time. Here's some stuff that's very similar. I'm like, oh, okay, let me actually dive into this. So I think that thought of personalization is something that we're really striving towards, is bridging that gap now from you have all this data and all these different touch points, but to your point, how can we make it at the set message, right? Like, you open up your phone, you're like, hey, you know what? This is like directly at me and this makes a lot of sense. Let me engage with the brand further. So I think all the stuff you're talking about is great. And it's a big initiative we're working on behind the scenes. We're super excited about, but that's what gets me excited about, being in the space as well, is I think there's still a lot of room there for someone to disrupt the way that loyalty is looked at and the way that loyalty is done. And I think the technology now is there. It's how do we take that vision, meld it together with the tech, and actually have something practical that folks can use.
Absolutely. And that's always been the promise, 25 years. It's always been the promise. And I think value delivery and cost has definitely improved year after year after year. At some point, though, restaurant tech companies need to make a profit, right? So
yes,
it has to be equitable, right? Like it's profit oriented. I think the shift, that point of sale is basically money losing on hardware and SaaS and making its money with the credit card transactions, that are coming through. I think has skewed the model. Look, the market is accepting it, and the market does not want to pay CapEx for hardware and all that. I get it, but that model can apply to all technologies. So at some point, there has to be this acceptance that there is a cost to technology, and the more value you deliver, the it should be an acceptable compensation for that. Otherwise, businesses go away, and it's a very hard environment. And I can tell you that I'm working with several companies outside of the U.S. Foodix in Saudi Arabia, and Ripples, which is in Israel, and Saber Eat and Fetch in England. And they're very innovative companies, and they look at the U.S. market, the largest dollar spend, in restaurant in the world, and they're a drop in the bucket. There are many thousands of companies looking at the U.S. market, trying to figure out how they will enter into this market. So I just think there's going to be a constant, consistent competition coming in. It will only get harder. It will not get easier, I guess.
Agreed. Yeah. But I think to your point, there's still a lot of room for someone to really come in there, disrupt. And, we're hopefully trying to be that player, but, a lot of stuff working behind the scenes, and we got to make sure it's practical. So, Seth, as we come closer to time here, I want to give you a chance to talk about your consulting practice, what you're doing, how can people reach out to you, and what are some of the services you provide today?
Sure. So the core company is FullOn Strategy. There's 5 of us. We're all very seasoned, B2B, hospitality, tech-focused and hospitality-focused backgrounds. We are go-to-market consultants. So we help I guess the simplest way to sum it up is take product and services and figure out the best way to deliver value and generate revenue in a market. So we typically work with companies that are already in market that have at least some customer base, because there's a lot more to work with in figuring out the strategy. So we start with strategy first. It's typically 90 days. We do 30 days of intake. We get really dug into everything about the business. We look at the goals of the business, particularly the revenue goals, because if the strategy does not align with goal delivery, I don't know why you would hire us, right? Like, it would make sense. We also help with product marketing. So a lot of times it's you get into position in the market, differentiation, value statements, value propositions, and then how do you communicate that? And who do you communicate that to? We'll examine brand positioning. We examine products, product market fit, innovation challenges, competitive analysis. We do all of that kind of work and the communications around it. And then we deliver a strategy overall. So it's we'll engage with the CEO first. And of course, we've had conversations with the whole C-suite team and aligned on goals and objectives. And then based on that final feedback, we'll meet with C-suites typically and whomever else they want. And then at that point, we create entire playbooks on how to execute on that plan. And then it's just a question of executing the playbooks. It could be internal resources. It could be existing third-party, say, marketing agencies they have. And we'll do marketing augmentation, which basically means once you have a strategy you believe in and will make an impact, then it's speed to execution. And a lot of times resources are just maxed out. So we'll fill those gaps. And a lot of times it's just creating new programs and standing them up, because program creation is the heaviest lift, and then maintenance is a lighter lift on an ongoing basis.
Yeah.
So that's typically what we do and how we engage. And then we deliver those services, some direct, and we also work with branded hospitality with Jimmy and Shotzi there. They're great partners in their solutions team, and we're figuring out how to create value with services and their media, as an example, that they do. And then we also work with Fred LaFranc, who has just decades of experience in the industry with results through strategy, and just an amazing restaurant and technology operations team there. Just great depth of talent and skill there. So we're trying to, I think it's Jimmy always says it takes a village, right, to support the restaurant industry. We're just trying to be one of the village people.
Love it. And just in my experience working with you, Seth, I mean, y'all have a ton of experience, great to work with. So, and if folks want to reach out to you to find out more about FullOn Strategy, how can they do that?
They can go to FullOnStrategy.com and then go to Seth Temko on LinkedIn. Just message me.
Okay. We'll make sure to put all that as we post this episode. So we're coming to the end here. Typically how I finish, Seth, is with a quick rapid fire round. So if that's okay with you, I'm going to just shoot off some quick questions. First thing that comes to mind. What is your current favorite cocktail of choice?
It's a kitty cocktail because I don't drink alcohol. And
so your mocktail of choice then?
My cocktail of choice would be club soda with the lime.
Okay, there you go. Brunch party or dinner party?
Brunch.
Why?
It's I like the blend of food better, and I don't like heavy meals.
Okay. What is a home cooked meal you're famous for?
Chili.
Ooh, okay. Is that a seasonal thing, or do you do it all year?
Seasonal. So I was born and raised in Chicago. I live in Nashville, but in Chicago, cold winters, big pot of chili.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I'm in Toronto, usually chili's usually in fall, winter, not so much this time of year. So, and then final question is, do you have what's your favorite restaurant right now in Nashville you want to shout out, and a dish from that restaurant that you love?
I really love Puckett's. Puckett's is Southern fare cooking. And I love the beef brisket. It's just really done well. And Puckett's does a good job. And there is a Puckett's in the airport at the Nashville airport. So there's no excuse. If someone comes to Nashville, they can try Puckett's for sure.
I'm going to put that on the list. Love me some Southern style cooking. So Seth, I want to thank you so much again. You brought up a lot of really, really cool things. And, just to kind of recap, you talked about, being data informed versus data driven, right? How you kind of make your decisions and what you've learned in the industry, and how important context is. And then we talked about kind of what you're seeing in the industry. Voice AI is kind of that next thing that's becoming really prevalent and having a ton of impact. You talked about loyalty, right? Is it it's perspective how you look at it? Is it discounts and rewards, or is it building a brand and community and engagement? The last piece you talked about, which was really, really cool, is how some of the best brands are differentiating themselves in the market, right? Through integrated marketing and making their story part of what they do, making it super, super thoughtful. And tech really is just a starting point, right? It's kind of like it's the vehicle, and where you take it is really up to you. So, really, really cool insights. So thank you again, Seth, for joining on. Again, before we wrap up, I know folks, you said, can reach out to you on LinkedIn. Any other forms? Best way for people to get in touch with you if they just want to have a chat?
FullOnStrategy.com, and there's calendar appointment right there, and you can schedule 30 minutes with me.
Perfect. Seth, thank you so much again. This wraps up another amazing episode of Data Delicacies. Again, we bring the best and brightest in the industry to have these, very insightful chats. Seth, I can't thank you enough. Again, this is powered by Incentivio. Episodes are coming out every Wednesday. We're still looking for folks to join. So if you are interested, reach out to me directly. You can find me at arun@incentivio.com or on LinkedIn, or just reach out to us on through the Incentivio website. Until next time, thank you. Seth, thank you again so much for joining. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right. Thanks, Arun. Be well.